So it all kicks off with our main guy, Leonus, the never-aging demon king, who's smack dab in the middle of a war against humanity, but thanks to a squad of some ridiculously overpowered mages and saints. His entire crew is getting their butts handed to them. Leonus spots that even Raquel, his old buddy, has jumped ship to the human side, and he's ready to throw some serious punches. But then Blackus chimes in, reminding him he's the Demon King, and if he bites the dust right here, the rebel goddess is going to be furious. So our main dude decides to play it cool, since he has to keep a promise to Roselia. And even though he's steaming inside, he agrees to take a breather for now. But don't get it twisted. This isn't the end for him, because he's the Immortal King, and he'll be back in like a few thousand years. Fast forward a whole lot of time, and we see this girl, Roselia, and her pal, Regina, rummaging through some ruins looking for anything that screams important. They should probably watch their backs, because getting ambushed in a sketchy spot like this would be bad news bears. But Roselia gets this seriously weird vibe creeping up on her. A split second later, as they wander about, an ancient statue just goes kaboom, and they start getting suspicious, thinking these must be the ruins of a major player who kicked the bucket like definitely a king or something. As they keep moving forward, their life form scanner suddenly picks up something behind a massive door. It's picking up something super shady, even though the writing on the entrance looks like it came from another planet. While they're trying to decode it, Regina decides she's going to scope out the area. But Roselia can't help herself and touches the entrance, which just swings wide open. So even though she's not exactly jumping for joy, she decides to step inside, and her scanner totally goes haywire right as it warns her about a humongous life reading nearby. In that moment, she spots this enormous crystal that just blows her mind, and she realizes there's someone trapped inside. Meanwhile, our guy Leon is having a chat with the goddess Roselia again. She's reminding him of the prophecy about his reincarnation. But then she starts to fade away, hoping he can track her down. And right then, our MC wakes up from a super epic nap and sees a figure through the crystal. But there's all this racket from some impact, and he's utterly lost about what's happening around him. But he figures it's time to break out, because the reincarnation ritual must have gone down. So he decides he's going to teach this Tomb Raider a lesson she won't forget, and with a flick of his power, he just wrecks the whole crystal, causing a giant explosion. It sends the girl crashing backwards, and our dude saunters over, but he's a bit taken aback when he gets a closer look, because she's an elf. He remembers he's supposed to dish out some punishment for disrespecting the Demon King, but then she gives him this totally strange look, not understanding why a little kid is chilling with him, and he catches his reflection in one of the shards, freaking out because his ritual totally bombed. He looks just like he did when he was human, and even worse like when he was a kid. But Roselia quickly tells him he's probably just in shock from all the craziness. So she gives him a hug, saying she'll look out for him. Our guy is not on board with this, but he can't even fight back because suddenly he's about to conk out. A hot moment later, our MC wakes up all grumpy, stuck in this human body, since he literally fainted from a serious case of hanger. And even though he can't stand humans, he ends up letting the girl help him out. With the food she gave him, he's feeling a whole lot better. So Roselia, seeing he's on the mend, introduces herself and asks for his name. Something our dude was hoping would totally blow her mind, because his name is supposed to sound super scary and Demon King-ish. But Roselia just shoots back with Leonus is a pretty cute name, and he's just flabbergasted that she doesn't recognize it. Meanwhile, Celia spills that he was probably snatched up by some void and locked away, and our dude is like, "What in the world are you even talking about?" The girl explains that the void is this crazy entity. They still can't quite wrap their heads around it, but some people think it hails from outer space and is basically humanity's biggest villain. So our dude decides to ask what year it is on the sacred calendar, but Roselia just looks at him all confused because it's year 64 on the Human Alliance calendar. And before he can fire off another question, Regina starts freaking out about running into a boy. Right then, they catch a bunch of explosions nearby, and one of the walls, a gigantic monster appears, and Roselia gasps, saying it's an ogre-type dude. She starts trying to shoot it, while our guy doesn't have a clue what that beast is, but there's no way he's letting it hurt them. But as he tries to take it down, he trips, and Roselia starts panicking. Just then, Regina shows up and starts doing some serious damage to the beast. She even mods her weapon to amp it up more and fires off this insane energy beam, leaving our dude totally shook because he's never seen anything like that before, and what she's using isn't even magic. But then Regina tells her partner to scram with the kid while she covers them. So they start hauling tail, and our dude is still puzzled about a bunch of things. but he's all set to use the fact that they don't know he's the Demon King and turn the girl into his personal intel agent. Just then, while they're running, another monster pops up and Roselia gets panicked, but our dude thinks he should use his magic to clear a path. And just as he gears up to do that, the girl tackles him to the ground to shield him from harm. But in that split second, she takes a colossal hit to her stomach, and our guy springs over to check on her. But the girl tackles him to the ground to save his skin. But just when she thinks she's a hero, bam, a huge hit to her stomach hits her like a brick wall, and our guy rushes over to check on her. But she just tells him to make a break for it and meet up with her partner. Just then, she starts fading quick, her life force whooshing away, and she even throws out an apology to our guy for not keeping him safe. All he can do is reminisce about a similar episode from back when the goddess picked him, so as the trio of monsters closes in for the kill, they might as well be throwing marshmallows at him because his protection is on point. And our dude lays it down for these baddies, saying he kinda likes the girl since she's his info hub. So, naturally, they're all getting slapped with an immediate death sentence. With his top-tier magic, he squashes one of the guys, flat zaps another one into oblivion, and with a fiery explosion, he sends the last beast flying, leaving nothing but charred remains. But he's also kind of surprised at how little juice he has in this body, because there shouldn't be a trace left of those guys. Still, he figures he should check on the girl because as the Demon King human lives aren't exactly on his agenda. But brave and noble souls, now that's a different story. He just can't grasp why he can't use his magic to restore her human life. However, he does have another trick up his sleeve with his magic. So he starts yanking blood back from Roselia's body and some gnarly fangs pop out. But our guy is really hoping she doesn't lose her mind when she realizes what just went down. And then, the girl totally heals up but passes out the moment Regina yanks the void and calls for her partner, while our dude just hears the ruckus, clueless about how the gadget works. Just then, Roselia wakes up and totally hugs our guy, stoked because he's unscathed, but then it hits her like a ton of bricks and she's all puzzled about why she's not banged up. So our dude explains the wound wasn't too gnarly and he just gave it a quick fix with his healing magic. But Celia, bless her heart, has no clue what he's on about and thinks he's just flexing Excalibur's powers. Meanwhile, our protag is scratching his head, totally lost about what she's talking about. That's when Regina jumps in to clarify that after the voids started showing up, kids somehow began popping out with bizarre magic powers that show up as weapons matching their personalities. And for Regina, it was that weapon she just whacked the void with. Hearing this, our guy decides to just roll with the punches. At that moment, Regina swoops in relieved they're okay. But when she spots the wound, she asks about the monster, and our protag just spins a tale telling her it just kinda poofed away. So, in the end, the girls decide it's time to skedaddle. A little later, Roselia gets our guy into this wacky ride that has him flipping out because it's zooming at ridiculous speeds. They take the time to chat about life, and our guy is left totally dazed when he starts seeing the human city as Roselia spills that it's the 7th Assault Garden, basically humanity's last hope against the voids. About 6 years back, Roselia was holed up with her friend in a safety bunker crammed with all the other sitting ducks while a massive showdown unfolded outside. Roselia was trying to keep Regina from losing it. She promised her that one day she'd grow up to be a total warrior queen and snag a super sword to take down tons of voids. Plus, she had faith in her fam who'd never lost against these monsters before. That's how she eased her friend's nerves. But deep down, fear gripped her about losing her family too. The gates swung open, showing the wreckage of the battle where everyone outside had been wiped out by those beasts, and all Roselia could do was cry because she couldn't hold up her end of the deal. Plus, she lost her entire family who were out there fighting. This haunting memory drives Roselia to vow never to make empty promises again. She tells our guy this is their fortress, but it's also their whole existence since it's where they live and train. After they go inside, our protag is still boggled that humans managed to whip up a floating island. But Roselia clarifies it's a floating island that helps them fend off the voids, though she's not expecting him to remember much since being one of the abandoned and getting snatched by voids must have been a trip. So for now, he's sticking with her, and she'll be his shield. Even though Regina lets her know he's got to hit the scanning center, which is a must here though. She's hoping he gets through it with no drama. And our guy is all chill with it, so he heads off to take a shower first. But when he's alone, he can't help but get irked since nothing is going according to plan, because he was supposed to resurrect and conquer humanity again with his army. But alas, humans have some seriously advanced gadgets, and there are monsters out there that have him scratching his head. For real. So first, he calls forth his two minions, Black and Sherry, who look like they've seen a ghost at the sight of our dude. He spills the beans that he looks this way because the ritual tanked, and that's why he's got this human face from back when he was a hero. However, he cautions them that this world is a whole different ballgame from what they're picturing. It looks like humans are the only species running the show, and if they want to take over, they've got a steep hill to climb. So that's the mission he's giving them. He needs them to scout out all the deets about this world, and these voids, which are apparently the heavyweight champs of monsters. As for him, spills the beans about looking like this, because the whole ritual thing was a total flop. So basically, he's stuck with the same human face he had when he was the hero, but he gives them a heads up that this world is nothing like their wild imaginations. Turns out humans are the top dogs around here, and if they want to rule the roost, they've got a hefty learning curve ahead. So guess what? That's the mission he's handing out. He needs them to gather a smorgasbord of intel about this world and those scary voids which are like the supervillains of monsters. As for him, he'll be sneaking around in this human fortress where they can hopefully keep a low profile and gather some intel. But he makes sure to let them know that magic isn't exactly common in this world, so they need to tread lightly. A little bit later, our main guy heads over to the checkpoint, thinking they're going to run him through a metal detector, and he breezes through the first few levels like a boss. But then as he's strutting down a corridor, he spots a meter going haywire, triggering an alarm, and he quickly decides to suppress his magic power, sending everything back to chill. After dodging a bunch of scanners, a card pops out, and Roselia snags it to send off to the academy. With that card in hand, he can finally enroll. She then casually mentions that the next day, he'll need to take a test for his sacred weapon. Yup. And here at the academy, they gotta figure out what type of weapon each user has and what it can do. She assures him it won't be too tough, and for now, she's gonna give him a little tour. So off they go. They end up at the Sacred Sword Academy, where our hero is just standing there with his jaw on the floor, completely amazed by the building, since it's way more gigantic than his old palace when he was the Demon King. But Roselia tells him that's only the main tower because she takes him around to see a few other spots like the library and even the lab in the teaching center. This totally blows our guy's mind because he thought he'd be walking into a military base or something. Roselia explains that the second assault garden is designed for that vibe, but they figured out they also needed places where people could just hang loose and enjoy life. So they even have chill spots like ballrooms. They also arrive at the training center where the test will happen the next day. Just then, Roselia gets this sharp pain in her head. She brushes it off, saying it's nothing, and claims she just needs to catch some Z's, since she's also waiting to snag herself a sacred sword soon. A moment later, they're wandering through the academy, which is definitely not something I expected to hear in this world, and there's no way they figured me out. Right at that moment, some dude shows up saying, "Hey," to Roselia, who gets super annoyed just at the sight of him, and our dude thinks these two have some drama going on, but Musil just tells her he came to say hi. Then he spots the wound on her belly man, so he deduces she must have been on some crazy difficult mission, and he doesn't hold back on roasting our main guy who's smart enough to keep quiet and not let his power slip. Musil tells Roselia she should just accept his offer to join his squad. That way, she wouldn't have to scour the trenches looking for randoms to team up with, because if she jumps on his offer, he promises no one would ever doubt her power as the heir to some legendary holy sword users. And he'd even bump her rank up if she agrees. Hearing this, plus he's doing this because Roselia doesn't have a weapon yet to prove her family's rep, but she's not about to play ball with any of that nonsense. Grabbing our main guy, she tries to make a break for it, but then Musil can't help but touch her hair, warning her he's not done chatting, but our dude, totally ticked off, calls him out quick-like, sending a massive wave of fear that makes Musil's face go pale. He whips out his holy sword, ready to throw down, but just then, Elfin pops up, warning him that dueling with holy swords is a no-go. Also, he's in the girls' dorms, so he better bounce before the principal catches wind of this. And Musil, overhearing all this and looking super annoyed, decides to skedaddle. Meanwhile, Roselia greets her friend who comes over and starts scanning our dude with her magical orbs. And he's stunned because he realizes that holy swords take on different forms depending on the user. Plus he notices the girls yapping about some missions they've been on. But just then, Roselia runs out of steam and collapses. This freaks her friend out, but she knows it's just that she needs a little downtime. But our main guy senses Roselia is starting to show that bloodthirst. A little later, they reach Raylia's dorm room, and she invites him inside, explaining that dorms are assigned by squads, and the better you do, the nicer your living space gets. So, for now, she shows him her sleeping area. Our main guy isn't so sure about chilling with only girls, but Roselia assures him. First, though, he needs to take a shower, and then they can talk about other stuff. In the end, our main guy goes for it, but he's amazed because it seems like humans have mastered water and fire magic just to shower. And while he's pondering how everything is so different in this world, Roselia walks in saying she's going to help since he apparently is clueless about shampoo. She starts explaining that she wants him to join her squad because she knows a sword. One of those holy ones like his that has healing powers is a hot commodity. So it's a given that high-level squads are gonna want him on their team. She gets that, but she'd really like him to stick with them. But our guy asks her what's with all this. Roselia replies that she never ducks out of a fight because she can't just sit around waiting for someone to save the day. And right then, she starts to collapse, totally wiped out, so our main dude realizes what's going on and activates the mark on her. And boom! Roselia's eyes do a complete flip. But she comes to her senses fast and is like she has no idea why he let her do that. But our guy explains that he didn't actually heal her because the real scoop is that she literally kicked the bucket back there. That night, she starts chatting about how she wants him to join her crew since she knows a killer sword just like his that works. Miracles is a real treasure. So it's a no-brainer that the big-time groups will be itching to recruit him. She gets that, but she's secretly hoping he'll stick around with them. But our guy's like, why are you so pumped about fighting when your holy sword hasn't even woken up yet? And Roselia is all fired up saying she never backs down from a scrap because she can't just chill and wait for someone else to rescue her. Right then, she starts crashing totally wiped out, so our boy figures it out and activates the mark on her. And bam, Roselia's eyes do a complete flip. In a blink. Feeling totally drained, our guy figures out what's going on and triggers the mark on her. And poof, Roselia's eyes do a complete 180. In just a blink, she sinks her fangs into our dude's neck, giving him a snack. But she snaps back to reality super quick and is like, what the heck was that? Our guy explains he didn't really heal her because, spoiler alert, she totally bit the dust back there. That night, Roselia suddenly remembers 2 years back when she was trying really hard to wake up her sacred sword, but no matter how much she sweat and cried, it was like trying to teach a cat to swim. Musul was there just roasting her, saying it was a waste of time, and the smartest move was to just join his team. But Roselia was like, not a chance. Then Regina swooped in like a superhero, warning him to back off because she completely believed her friend would get an epic sword and become a beast. Meanwhile, Roselia, she was all riled up thinking her friend would acquire some overpowered sword and become a total beast. And Roselia was left pondering if she'd ever awaken the sword inside her. The very next day, Roselia wakes up and our dude greets her with a cheerful "good morning," while casually mentioning he used magic to teleport her to bed so she could catch some Z's. Roselia looks at him and goes, "So who are you really?" And our hero spills the beans that he's some ancient mage who got reincarnated after ages. So basic, turns out he couldn't heal her because she was beyond dead, but instead he performed some super high level magic to make her into the mightiest vampire around. That explains why she's been feeling as weak as a wilted flower. She's been thirsting for that magical energy, which is why she perked up after sipping a bit of his blood. Roselia is totally blown away by this revelation and admits she's from a prestigious family of sacred sword users whose members all kick the bucket, protecting people during an event called the Stampede of Boys, which is why she and Regina got booted from this academy. Everyone's expecting her sacred sword to be a total boss, but now she's second-guessing if she can even pull it off, and Roselia says she has got it all under control. Later, they hit the cafeteria where Roselia is all baffled because she's not feeling hungry. He explains that since she's a high-level vampire, she can eat regular food, but it won't give her any energy, so he decides to get her something that will actually work. He pulls out a shiny gold coin to pay, but Roselia goes, "That's not going to cut it here." Apparently, they only accept credit. Plus, that coin looks like it came from a treasure chest. Just then, they overhear two dudes barking at some girl to cough up a debt. But she tells them she's broke right now and promises to pay them back soon. In one swift move, she drops them like they were hot and tells them to take a hike right as Roselia pops in to ask what happened the day before, hearing she got suspended, which Sakura confirms. Apparently after that, she hit the jackpot at a casino, lost her. Anyway, she waves at our dude because he seems to have a really old coin. When she says hi, it totally solidifies what she was thinking, because this girl looks like she means business with a sword. So they all decide to grab a bite. They get an invite from Roselia, but our guy is curious about Sakuya's outfit because it looks pretty unique, and she nods in affirmation. Apparently it's a traditional get-up from her hometown, a keepsake from her sister, because her entire town got wiped out by those boys and she's out for revenge to take them all down. Later, they stroll into the training room where the instructor fills them in. She's going to test our main character's power type, and he's like, "I'm pretty sure I'm support." But the instructor is raising a skeptical eyebrow. She explains he'll have to spar against some bots modeled after those boys, but figures since he's support class, he's gonna need someone to play the front line. But suddenly, our boy just crushes the robots like they were made of cardboard and strolls out like a champ. Everyone's jaws drop from his power. This also makes our MC sweat a bit because he thought he was holding back. A few curious onlookers wander over to see what all the racket was about, but the instructor was already hunting for more robots for the test because she was taken aback by the wreckage. That's when Musil rolls in declaring he'll take over. Being a top-tier holy sword user, he says he can handle the kid's test, and the instructor is totally on board with that. So our dude thinks, no sweat, all he's got to do is take down this guy. But Roselia is having none of it and warns that he'll use all the girls to gang up on our MC. So if that's how it's going to play out, she's stepping up as his bodyguard, and she's ready to throw down too. Musil agrees, but only if she joins his crew if she loses. Meanwhile, our MC jumps in and agrees without a second thought because they're completely confident they're going to win. And that means Musil will be banned from getting anywhere near Roselia ever again. In the final stretch, the instructor hands Roselia a training weapon and she kicks things off by charging at Musil. But he pulls the girls under his sway into a shield wall and sends even more at our main character. Our guy just uses his magic, busting through her enemies and making a beeline for Musil, who traps her with his weapon while he mocks her, claiming she can't shake off his control with her powers. Now, all he needs to do is snag our MC to claim victory. So he strolls right up to our boy. Our dude is contemplating finishing this quickly, but then he hears Roselia vow not to lose, especially not when it comes to keeping him safe. In that electrifying moment, everyone freezes as Roselia's hands light up like a Christmas tree and a holy sword pops into existence. Roselia breaks free from Musil's grip, and in mere seconds she's zooming towards him, smashing his sword to smithereens. Her epic move also frees the other girls from Musil's grip. Now Musil decides to throw in the towel while Regina bursts forth to wrap her arms around her friend because she finally unlocked her holy sword. After a few hours, they have a raging party in their dorm room. They lay out a giant feast to celebrate Roselia and her shiny new holy sword. She slips past her foes and makes a beeline for Musil, who's all about trapping her with his weapon, while throwing shade, claiming she can't break free from his grip with her power, and all he needs to do is nab our MC to make him a part of his collection. So he strolls right up to our boy. Our dude is itching to finish this fast, but then he hears Roselia refusing to lose, and especially refusing to drop the ball on protecting him. At that moment, everyone's jaws hit the floor as Roselia's hands start glowing and a holy sword pops into existence. She even breaks free from Musil's grip. In no time, she's charging at the guy, smashing his sword like it's made of toothpicks. This move also frees the other girls from being his puppets, and Musil throws in the towel while Regina darts out to hug her friend because she finally scored her holy sword. A few hours later, they throw a shindig in their dorm room, whipping up a whole feast to celebrate Roselia and her shiny new holy sword. So everyone starts buzzing about how epic this whole situation is going to be for the crew. Then the big question pops up, where on earth should our MC crash? He figures snoozing with Roselia is his best bet, since she's the one he trusts the most. And he's totally cool with keeping her company, so all the girls are on board with it. Easy peasy. Meanwhile, our guy knows this setup is perfect for keeping his secrets under wraps. A bit later, he's chatting with Elfin, who's crunching some numbers for him. So our guy asks her about her holy sword, but she's all like, nah, that's just for analyzing data now. Turns out she used to be the brawn back in her old crew, but after a couple of her pals got wiped out by some void monsters, she felt like a total wreck. Now, her holy sword is pretty much stripped of its original mojo, but then our dude gets his eyes on a map, and a few minutes later, he's all over it. He starts linking it up with where his palace used to sit and where they are now. Right then, he decides to summon Blackus to get the scoop on what she's dug up. So Blackus tells him that from her observations, there's a core right underneath them, and it's heavily guarded. It's this massive magic crystal that fuels the whole fortress. Our dude is totally stoked about it because it fits perfectly with his master plan. He asks her to dig deeper, but just then, Sharia pops in saying she's got some juicy intel too, because she discovered some bomb food. But also, none of these folks seem to know about the 10,000-year war, or the Demon King Leonus. This totally throws our dude for a loop, but Sherry notices he's turned Roselia into a familiar, which he happily confirms, since he's convinced that as a vampire queen, she's going to be his ace in the hole and boost his demon army's power like crazy. Just then, Roselia struts in, so our dude waves goodbye to Sherry. But later that evening, some divers are checking things out below the fortress and get freaked out seeing these roots heading straight for it. But when they try to get a closer look, bam! They get jumped. That night, our dude recalls how thousands of years ago he was just a young punk famous as one of the kingdom's heroes, and he decided to help out some random dude who said there were monsters near their turf. Sticking to his whole justice vibe, he decided to go along unlike the other heroes who couldn't care less about the little folks in the kingdom. But when he got to the location, he notices the dude who led him there has vanished, and bam, 3 mages pop out to ambush him with a spell that leaves him frozen in place. At that very moment, a squad of soldiers appears out of thin air and chains him up tight so he can't fight back. Once he's caught, they make sure to run him through with spears to ensure he's out for good. In the end, after handling their business, they split. Because the hero was becoming a major headache for the king, people were actually starting to like him too much. That's when goddess Roselia shows up all shocked and horrified by what they did to him. But our boy is all zen about it, saying he doesn't hate them because he understands this world's quirks and how tough it is to change things. This is something that the goddess totally disagrees with since she's been watching him for ages. And that's why she drops by to chat, because being a hero is just way too dull for her. She's like, how about becoming my servant instead and stepping into the role of the next Demon King? And just like that, our boy wakes up thinking he's still got a promise to fulfill for his goddess. A moment later, our dude wakes up Roselia, who's totally in awe because she jumped awake the second she heard his voice. He explains it's all thanks to that obedience seal. He tells her that now she's his familiar, she's got to do as he says. But then, he clarifies that the main reason he set it all up was to discuss that mark on her neck. It's painfully clear she fed on him last night, and while she's not mad about it, since she is his familiar, he asks her to give him a little heads up next time. Roselia overhears and apologizes. Then like clockwork, she gets a call from Finn who's like, hey, I unearthed some funky data about that investigation, so he'll dig deeper and keep her in the loop with all the info. Later, Roselia thanks him for the intel and suggests they should totally take a stroll since it's a holiday and they're free from classes. Meanwhile, over at the Central Tower, they're deep in discussion about the fresh intel and freaking out because the whole investigation squad got completely wiped out. So now they're just twiddling their thumbs waiting for orders from the commander while brainstorming a plan B because one of the Empire bigwigs reminded them they should be able to move the entire garden if things get hairy. Not that anyone thought it would ever come to that. I mean, they've beefed up defenses like nobody's business over the past few years, but then they pull up a grainy image of what the recon team spotted right before they got smacked. In the picture, it looks like a bunch of roots, which could mean they're dealing with a Void Lord. Considering how fast they got taken out, this has them super spooked because it might mean an all-out stampede is heading their way. While they're arguing about what to do, they get the commander's orders to send in another recon mission to that area, but this time with elite squads to determine if it's something they can take on or if they need to get the heck out of Dodge. Meanwhile, our boy is watching Roselia throw down with a bunch of robots, and she's dismantling them with some seriously slick moves. He's giving her props, saying her sword skills are off the charts, but then he tells her that with her vampire powers, she could. While they're deep in this convo at the Central Tower, they're still freaking out that the whole investigation squad got taken out entirely. So now they're just waiting on the commander's marching orders while trying to figure out a backup plan, because one of the Empire suits reminded them they should be able to relocate the whole garden if things heat up. Not that anyone thought it would ever spiral out of control like that. Seriously, they've beefed up defenses like crazy over the last few years, but then they pull up this grainy image of what the recon team stumbled upon right before they got wrecked. In the picture, it looks like a bunch of roots, which means they might be up against a Void Lord. Judging by how quickly they were obliterated, this has them extremely nervous because it could mean a major stampede is on its way. And while they're having a heated discussion about their next move, they receive the commander's orders deciding to send in another recon mission to that spot, but this time with elite squads to find out what they're really dealing with and whether it's worth fighting or if they need to bail out. Meanwhile, our boy is watching Roselia take down a host of robots, and she's totally owning them with some slick tricks. He's throwing her compliments, saying her sword skills are absolutely insane. But then he reminds her that with her vampire powers, she could totally ready to use magic and become a rad magic swordswoman, and he's going to teach her the ropes piece by piece. But for now, she's got to practice against tougher opponents. So he whips out his magic, summoning a horde of skeletons for her to unleash on. Roselia spots this and is like, "Count me in," and starts whacking them like nobody's business, giving it her all. A short while later, she's completely pooped, but she's still grateful because leveling up is way easier now, and she can feel her muscles getting buff. Still, she knows it's time to refuel and grab some grub. Meanwhile, over on the other side, Finn is busy digging into the investigation about those squads and that entire mystery lurking beneath the fortress. The other girls roll in all chatty and curious about where Roselia's at. But Finn tells them she's probably kicking it with our MC, checking out the city while they wait for the investigation results in case they need to jump in. Speaking of our main dude, he's just staring at the city, totally amazed at how much humanity has evolved. Roselia takes a breather to pick up a few things when who shows up? Sherry working a gig to earn some cash. She's a bit stunned seeing how tight Roselia and our MC have gotten and wonders what they're off to on their day off. A few minutes later, our MC and Roselia hit up this little restaurant, and a bunch of kids come running out to say hi to her. This totally surprises our guy, but Roselia's like, "Relax, they're just orphans who chill here." She mentions she works part-time to help out, which triggers a major flashback for him about his own childhood. He totally gets the orphan vibe, but being surrounded by a swarm of little kids is making him feel super awkward. He throws a casual "what's up" to the lady running the place, who looks super grateful he showed up, saying he's always a huge help. So Roselia introduces him, telling the kids he's got a holy sword, and they all freak out and crowd around him. But Roselia is quick on her toes and changes the subject fast, because they gotta get the food sorted. And our boy is silently thanking her for the rescue. Yeah, he was definitely not digging having all those kids in his personal bubble. Meanwhile, the research team out at sea isn't turned up anything. Like, it's all crickets on weird stuff, just some cracks. At the same time, Elfin and her squad are feeling some weird tremors that are kinda creeping them out, and Sakuya notices and gets a bad gut feeling about it. At that moment, some researchers stroll into a room where the atmosphere is just way off, and they're totally floored when they see the whole place covered in roots. Now, flipping back to a flashback of his past life, our dude was 12 when he, Ericyle, and Thierry sauntered into the city, the one that had been completely overrun by enormous monsters. So, Ericyle suggested that the best move here was to unleash his power and make everyone in the city disappear, then use the divine powers to just bring back anyone who accidentally got vaporized, which would be super rough for those folks. But hey, efficiency, right? So he starts summoning this ridiculously strong sun, and you could practically feel all the monsters and humans turn into jelly from weakness. But our guy wasn't having any of that nonsense. He whips out his holy sword and totally wrecks Ericel's spell like it's made of paper. He's like, "This is just cruel and unnecessary," and declares he's going to handle it his own way. So our hero goes on a rampage through the city, slicing and dicing all the monsters like it's a buffet. Meanwhile, everyone's looking at him like he's some sort of legendary hero, even though he knows all that fame is just going to bring him all sorts of headache. Back in the present, the vice commander is having a powwow with his team about the juicy findings from their investigation. Turns out they didn't spot any void bodies where they searched, but then someone chimes in that a student has an analysis that sounds like it might actually matter. Even though they know it's Elfin, they decide to listen to her since she's part of a big family of holy sword users. Just then, Elfin jumps in saying she's noticed a bunch of weird wiggles and shimmies happening underground. She whipped out her holy sword to take a gander, and after filtering out all the background chatter, she figured out that something had snuck into the fortress and was cruising through the districts. This totally sent the vice president and everyone else into panic mode since it sounded super serious. What she's saying is bonkers because if it's real, their security system should have caught that intruder. But the surveillance crew started nodding along with Elfin's info, saying, "Yup, we felt some tiny earthquakes." And the scanners are clueless, acting like it's not even a void with how. So in one of the rooms, they spotted what looked like an actual living plant just creeping around like it was auditioning for a horror movie. So now it's up to them to deal with this mess. And Elf is just praying that there aren't a million voids lurking while she desperately tries to get a hold of Roselia since the communication. So he says, yeah, there have been a few tiny rumbles. And guess what? The scanners aren't even picking it up as a void. The signal's like way too weak, even though they're claiming they just got their hands on those snazzy security guard outfits. So in one of the rooms, they spotted what seriously looks like a real live plant just slinking around. It's up to them to deal with this botany situation, and Elf is praying hard that there aren't a ton of voids lurking about. Meanwhile, she's zooming to reach Roselia because the comms are totally messed up. While this is happening, our dude is just hanging with the crew, chowing down like it's a buffet. Meanwhile, our boy is just hanging out with his crew, stuffing his face, blissfully unaware of the looming chaos. Back at HQ, they've started spotting bits of the void flitting around the hallways. That sneaky arrival. They even send over some security footage where this thing attacks them, forcing them to make. They've got footage of this thing leaping at them, forcing them to make a quick exit. But the second-in-command's freaking out because he can't reach the Imperial capital for orders. But then, when they finally hear back from the guards, they're all like, whoa, the void just up and disappeared. Which is mega strange because a void is usually just out to wreak havoc on everyone without pause. But Elfin's like, hey, you guys need to check out the path that thing took, because it's headed straight for the magic furnace room, which means we're about to tango with a void lord. If that bad boy lays its claws on the furnace's power, it could totally kick off a stampede. That sends everyone into a tizzy, and the vice commander realizes the weight of the world is on his shoulders now, whatever happens next. So he orders the entire city into lockdown because they are officially under siege. Meanwhile, all civilians need to bug out immediately, while the members wielding holy swords gear up to brawl with the oncoming stampede. In that moment, they're cranking the security dial to 11. The guards dash over to the magic furnace and start tussling with the void because they have to prevent it from getting cozy. But even with all the reinforcements they send, they can't seem to stop it completely, since they're all too freaked out about wrecking the magic furnace, and those monster vines actually reach it. So it begins to slurp up all the magic power, and everyone in the city can feel the energy just plummet. Our dude Enrolling noticed this real quick. He steps outside for a hot minute and is just stunned by the chaos. They hear alarms blaring and see the sky cracking open, and thousands of voids come pouring out. Even the main HQ flips into battle mode, leaving Roselia utterly gobsmacked. She can't believe they are smack dab in the middle of a stampede. Back at HQ, they decide to pull out all the stops using every weapon in their arsenal to smash the voids and gearing up for a colossal scrap. They even fire off a flare for an SOS, but they know help from the Imperial capital is a whole 3 days away. Just then, one of the commanders is dead set that they can hold the fort until backup arrives because the academy students are all seasoned fighters who aren't about to back down, even in the face of a stampede. Meanwhile, Elfin and her crew are hustling the civilians to safety in the bunkers, keeping a keen eye on HQ as they launch their attack on the tidal wave of voids. They're just wondering where Roselia is, though, because the squad needs to stick together. But regardless, they've got to shield the civilians. So they power up their holy swords and leap into the fray. Our dude, on the other hand, is just standing there totally in awe of all these monsters, and Roselia chimes in saying they've got to corral the kids into a bunker. So they slip inside while our guy has a quick chat with Sherry, telling her she's got to keep his family's crew safe since they are in a real pickle. A few seconds later, he tells Roselia the kids can't go outside because there are some dragons flying around, and she's all like, say less. She decides to roll out and take them down, activating her sacred sword. Meanwhile, our dude is stressing a bit worried because she hasn't even whipped out her final form as the vampire queen yet, but he's still all in for supporting her move. In a flash, Roselia nails him with some swift moves and takes down 2 dragons while our guy is doing his thing with fire. Magic reminding her they can't let their guard down because there are still a boatload of monsters to deal with. The rifts in the sky are exploding in size. But just then, our dude spots a figure that looks painfully familiar, and he starts having flashbacks from his past life. Meanwhile, the other girls are unleashing their inner beast, taking out the boys that were creeping up on him, which Elfin confirms a bit later since they've completely cleared out the area surrounding them. And right then, they catch sight of this massive void popping up near the city center, something that's taller than several buildings. They start freaking out because a Hydra is way too overpowered. Our dude also spots an ancient dragon making its entrance. It's crawling out from the rifts, and he knows for sure he's gonna have to bust out 10th level magic if he stands a chance at taking that thing down. So he tells Roselia to stall for him. A few seconds later, our dude summons a raging rain of fire that crashes into all the voids. It slams into everything in the vicinity, knocking that dragon to the ground, but it's not enough to take it out. Then Blacka slides out of the shadows to back him up, and he casts a level 10 spell to completely obliterate that void. This leaves Roselia utterly flabbergasted. At that very instant, the ground beneath them shatters wide open. Some roots shoot up and just snag Roselia while our dude watches as those same roots form into a familiar shape that calls out his name. And that's when it clicks for him. That boy is Araka, someone he's known for ages. Way back when, after our dude returned from a war, he found her in the palace of the goddess Roselia. So, he laid out the details of his victory against the enemies and the loot he scored, and Roselia was over the moon about it. She was pumped because he was transforming more and more into the Demon King she was on the lookout for. So, it was the ideal moment for her to gift him something special. She handed him a sword from his hero days. But knowing he couldn't wield a hero's sword at that point, she transformed it into a cursed sword that would grant him all the power he could ever desire. But she put it out there that to get it, he had to prove his loyalty to the goddess was the real deal. Flash forward to the present, our dude claps back at those roots with his magic and manages to scatter them. He notices the obedience mark is still glowing, so Roselia must still be alive, and it seems like Araka is daring him to come down. Right. On cue, Blacka pops in mentioning they're facing that old geyser again and asks our dude, so what's the game plan for the human kids because they're super squishy and you shouldn't waste your time on them. But our guy knows he can't just ghost them, so he cooks up a magical shield with his powers to keep them safe. And get this, he summons a whole squad of skeletons to help defend them. The kids witness this and thank him. And as he starts to stroll away, our guy hears the elf's voice in his earpiece because she's trying to reach out to Roselia, who's busy battling some ginormous void monster, and they absolutely need her backup. But our dude just snatches the earpiece and says, hey, Raylia's been snatched by a void beast, so she's on a timeout. But then he tells her to hang tight because he's going in to rescue her himself. The elf is freaking out, saying it's way too dangerous and he should let a whole team handle it. But just then, Regina totally annihilates this massive dragon. And our guy tells her to just look at the chaos around. So the elf does that using one of her little spying orbs, and she's totally puzzled about why there are signs of some serious beatdowns everywhere. But our dude just assures her he'll explain everything later, and for now he's off to rescue his partner. The elf's cool with it, no questions asked, and within just a few seconds, our guy is already gliding on these magical plates deep underground. His familiar asks him why he's even looking out for humans since it knows Sherry is helping Raylia's squad and even threw a shield over the kids. But our MC just says he's got an eye on some of those wicked weapons those girls have. Plus, he wants to keep Roselia happy since she's going to be his right-hand gal. A few seconds later, they smash through some locked doors and arrive at the core of the magic furnace, where they see our Kyle just slurping up all the furnace's energy. Our dude demands he hand over the girl and blasts him with a magic shot. Arcally just takes it like a champ and heals up in seconds. Then he tells our guy that he should have kicked the bucket 1,000 years ago. It's too late for a comeback because everything's changed and now the world's about to hit the reset button. Like from the ground up because the Void picked him to create a new world. This whole spiel totally scrambles our MC's brain. He spots hundreds of faces popping out of these roots and realizes our Kyle straight up absorbed a bunch of priests. Meanwhile, Roselia can hear our dude's voice, but she can't break free from whatever's got her stuck. And our Kyle takes the opportunity to jump our MC, who tries to push back but ends up getting hurt. So he seizes the moment to talk to Black, because Ackle is draining their mana, which is why their spells feel like marshmallows right now. On top of that, that light power Arl's using is being powered up by the souls of those priests. So it's time to go hard. Meanwhile, Roselia is just listening to the rumble and getting super ticked off that she's just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. She can't handle it because she swore she'd fight instead of waiting to be saved. nerfed, so with all her might she summons her holy sword, not even flinching that the roots are making her bleed, cause she has to go join our dude who's smack dab in the middle of the action. He and Black are racing to find where Roselia should be. Then when our guy sees a burst of light, he knows that's the spot. He chugs the earpiece with some of his blood like it's an energy drink, and it totally pierces Raylia's leg. Her vampire powers kick into high gear, and she easily breaks free from her constraints, managing to escape from inside Arkyle. Arkyle is totally baffled about what just went down, but our dude's like, I just shared my blood with her, bro. In the end, our MC snags Roselia and is pumped because he sees she's finally got a grip on her vampire powers. And also, check it out, this Rel starts cooking up a super powerful spell to wipe him off the map, something Black is already hip to. Our boy asks Roselia for cover because he knows he can take him, but he just needs a hot minute. Right then, she tosses out a little of her blood to boost her vamp abilities. And with blood blades and her sword, she starts tackling the roots. Meanwhile, our dude is leveling up to Rail's position, gearing up to unleash his max power, which has Black totally freaking out, because once he goes all out, there's no turning back. Our guy's like, I know, remembering what Roselia told him. She'd warned him that even though his old holy hero sword has gotten a makeover, it still packs that same outrageous power, so he's got to be worthy, and his true intentions for using it are about to face the ultimate test, because if he breaks the seal too early, he's going to get hit hard. So this is it, the moment of truth. He decides to grab the sword and summons its power to morph the 7th Assault Garden into his new kingdom where the Demon Empire can rise. He needs its strength, and the sword just unleashes its might, leaving Blackish totally shaken that he actually pulled it off, while Arkle gets spooked because he never saw that sword coming. But our guy warns him it's time to catch some Z's, dropping his ultimate technique. He unleashes a magic slash that completely wipes Arkyle off the map, making him go poof. And everyone starts to catch on because the cracks in the sky disappear and the voids start falling like bad habits. Meanwhile, back at HQ, they're losing it that they actually took the win, and also that the Lord Void in the magic furnace just vanished. So they start brainstorming theories about what just happened, thinking maybe the magic furnace's power made that void just explode. And even though that would be one wacky coincidence, they're hyped because a win's a win. So everyone decides to throw a party and celebrate their victory and the fact their city is still standing. The next day, our dude is feeling like he got hit by a freight train in his room because his human body is way too weak and can't handle the power surge from using his sword. Still, he can't believe that after 1,000 years of watching over humans, Roselia rolls up with some grub and admits she needs to recharge because she burned through a ton of energy. Our dude is totally fine with that. While Roselia is munching on a snack, the other girls waltz in, leaving them both baffled. On another note, a ship is cruising toward the 7th Garden because Princess Alteria decided they should go give a round of applause to the crew that defended the city. But on the other hand, the news of the victory totally knocked their socks off, since they never thought it would wrap up so quickly. A few days later, our guy thinks it's time to hit up the library for some extra knowledge since he's still totally lost in this world. But when he tries to stroll in, a guardian spirit blocks his path, and he's blown away that guardian spirits are still a thing. Just then, Regina pops up out of nowhere, surprising him, and she says she just dropped by to unload some stuff, though she's surprised to see him there. So our dude makes up a story and claims he's hunting for info on ancient scripts, hoping to trigger some memories about his past. This totally sells it for Regina, who glances at the artificial spirit, gives it a nod, and requests permission to go inside, getting it to swing the door open for them. So our hero asks her what's up with the royal spirit, and she says the hot gossip is that it's probably camping out in some forest. A moment later, they get a notification because the squads that fought in the battle got invited to a meeting with the princess. He decides to pick up a little something for Roselia, but on the way he gets totally distracted and she's cool with it, no fuss. She just lets him go off on his exploration spree. Meanwhile, a crew of Agi are huddling up because the humans basically shoved them back into places where they're not thriving. So they're like, we've got to stir the pot. And what better way than to kidnap the princess? They're all brainstorming their plan when this girl slides out from the shadows, claiming she can lend them a hand. They're all super shook, but the girl introduces herself as Karek, a witch from the Forest of Darkness, and then works her magic. She straight up conjures a demon sword, which blows everyone's minds because they think it's some kind of sacred blade, and when Bastia gets a grip on that power, his strength skyrockets. So they all agree to let her join the gang because she'd be a major asset. A little later, our boy spots the princess's ship and is totally taken aback because for his demon kingdom, they'd need a whole fleet of ships with that type of military muscle. Seriously, they'd need a whole squadron of ships packing that kind of punch. Plus, he thinks about snagging something for Roselia. But on his way there, he's stunned when the shopkeeper tells him that races exist with elves, werewolves, and a bunch of other types. And that's when our MC realizes there's a whole lot of stuff he's just not in the loop about. Seconds later, he meets up with Roselia and the other girls who are all pumped to see him and announce that it's time to roll out. But our dude is feeling a bit off because Regina isn't with them. And the girls are just like, she's probably busy or something. He gets a suspicious vibe and thinks they're hiding something. But right then, another girl shows up, and the tension between her and Roselia is like off the charts. And they throw some shade at each other for a minute, then bounce still a bit salty while back on the ship. The Iggy sneaked in and took out a few guards using their faces as disguises so they can slip by without being spotted, just pushing ahead with their plan. A few minutes later, RMC was chilling in a quiet corner of the ship with a copy of the books he managed to dig up. But no matter how hard he searched, he found zero info about the goddess and the heroes, making him suspect someone tried to wipe that chapter of history clean so nobody would ever find out. Just then, Sherry shows up and says she's got some hot intel. From what she's seen, that ship also runs on energy from a magic crystal in its core. Plus, it has a weapon that looks like it can fly. There are also some areas they're still checking out, so our MC gives her props and asks her to keep digging for more info. Just then, Roselia returns with the other girls and they invite him to go for a swim. After a few hours, everyone's gathered in the main hall to welcome the princess, while Aaliyah just stares wide-eyed. She watches as one of her guards gets taken out by a waiter, and then the other guards get wiped out too. With no clue what to do, she just watches as 2A tell her she has to come with them, and she lets her spirit animal loose to try to escape. While Carrick warns them it's not going to work right as chaos erupts in the main hall. The Sigyn just took control and wasted the guards, revealing their true forms and leaving everyone in shock because the rumor was they were wielding some sacred swords. But those swords get snatched real quick, and our boy decides to kick back for a sec to mull over what they're scheming. A few minutes later, they split the civilians from the magic sword users, and our MC sneaks into the shadows just as one of the Cyan chimes in. He says they're going to be offerings to the goddess, which totally catches our boy's ear. So he decides it's time to swoop in and save the princess. He just ghosts the place without anyone even batting an eye. Meanwhile, the princess gets grabbed by some spirit. The spirit hijacks the navigation, and Carrick and the other agent order everyone to head straight for the imperial capital. But the princess is like, hey, there's a swarm of voids right there. We'll get wrecked if we head there now. But Carrick totally refuses to take a detour. Besta calls her out, saying, we can't bite the dust here. But then she spots Carrick smirking. She realizes that was his plan. She's got a master plan, and there's no way she's letting that slip through her fingers. But as she pulls out her sword, it starts giving her a little burn sensation. Char reminds her that she's the one who granted them that power, so they can't really use it against her, right? He also tells the other angel to play nice and follow orders. Back at the dock, everyone's scratching their heads, wondering why the ship's about to sail off, when it wasn't even on the schedule until tomorrow. And then, Regina spots this spirit animal rolling in like it owns the place. And as she reaches out to touch it, she hears the princess's voice begging for help, claiming the whole ship has been taken hostage. So she takes off like a rocket because they've got to put a stop to this. Not long after, she runs into our guy in a hallway. He's totally clueless about why she's there, but Regina spills the beans that her sister is in some serious trouble. Then Regina lays down the whole story. When she popped into the world above, there was this star everyone freaked out about because they thought it was linked to a huge disaster. So the king decided his newborn daughter needed to vanish and called up a team of guys to make that happen. But Duke Crystal wasn't on board with that plan, so he stealthily brought the baby girl back to his place. He decided to raise her alongside his own baby girl, Roselia. She grew up as Relia's maid, but the plot twist is she's actually Alteria's sister. And when she got close to Caben, the royal family's spirit animal, she knew something was definitely off. Our guy backs her up, saying, there's a whole crew of Psy causing chaos in the main hall. They've got everyone tied up in there, but he tells her to chill because the rest of the gang is already gathering some intel. He says they should go for the princess first, since apparently Kaban is the spirit that's supposed to be steering the ship. But plot twist, the ship's already moving, which means the princess is being forced to take the wheel. So they've got to rescue her pronto before things take a turn for the worse. Meanwhile, Roselia is deep in conversation with Elfin. He's been analyzing the powers of the lightning magic wand, which is set to trigger the kabooms. So now she only has a few ticks left to block the signal and rescue everybody. She starts cooking up a plan since her vampire blood can totally do the trick. Our dude makes it to the navigation center. No sign of the princess, just a few bodies lying around next to the artificial spirit. But Regina spots they've charted a course right for Avoid's Reef. And to make matters worse, the ship's controls are completely locked up, so she needs to focus hard to try and hear the princess's voice again. But our guy suggests she link up with her through Kaban, since he's likely being a royal spirit. But Regina's having a mini freakout because if she does that, it'll definitely out her as royalty too. But our guy reminds her that rescuing her sister is the main quest right now, so Regina is like, "Alright, I'm in." She gets her head in the game. She channels the spirit and actually connects with the princess, who's totally blown away that Regina can even tap into that kind of power. But Regina plays it cool and lies, saying she's a spirit mage and just needs the princess's location. Like right now. So the princess tells her they're taking her somewhere, but they need to rescue the crew first because they're heading for some gnarly reefs and they have to get Cabana to a secure room deep inside the ship. From there, they can hijack the system once she gives the access code. Regina's mind is totally blown, but she's ready to roll. She agrees and breaks it down for our main character, who tells Regina to get moving and take charge of the ship. He's got his sister to save. And just like that, our guy crashes through a window and launches himself out to find Alteria. Meanwhile, back in the main hall, Roselia is making the most of the chaos Sakuya and Fenris are stirring up as a big old distraction. With Delphine's help, she starts to dismantle the trigger those IGNs are using to set off the fireworks. With that obstacle out of play, all the girls break free and just let loose. They totally wipe the floor with the Igon in seconds and take them down like pros. They're super pumped because the plan went off without a hitch. Now she's trying to get in touch with our main character, but no matter how hard she tries, she can't connect. And just then, they look up and are floored to see they're entering a boy reef. They know this is a seriously treacherous zone. A pack of monsters starts jumping aboard the ship, but without missing a beat. They begin evacuating the civilians while keeping the creatures at bay. Right then, our guy finally reaches out to Roselia and fills her in on what's at stake, how they're trying to save the princess. It seems like they're trying to bail with her on some getaway ship. So he asks Roselia to back up Regina, who's making a beeline for the ship's core to regain control. Roselia is all in and makes a dash, managing to save her friend who is surrounded by boys. At the same time, back in the hall, the rest of the squad is gaping in shock as a high-level boy just pops out of a rift. So Sakura tells everyone to scram because she's got this. They need to protect the civilians. A few seconds later, she's left alone with that boy. And she's somewhat relieved no one else is there to witness because now she can unleash her demonic sword powers without holding back. No problem. Meanwhile, Regina is making headway thanks to Roselia, who tells her she'll handle the boys. So, Regina dives into the core and activates the Calamity Star code, remembering what her sister had shared with her. That star meant the world to her as a princess. So, once Regina takes the wheel again, she whips the ship around to get them the heck out of Dodge. Meanwhile, our guy is holding back the ship that Carrick was planning to escape on with the princess. And once Regina gets back in the driver's seat, she spins that ship around and hightails it out of there. Meanwhile, our boy is putting the brakes on the ship that Carrick was planning to skedaddle with the princess. And back in the hall, the girls are totally losing it because they're completely swarmed by the boys. But then out of nowhere, in just a few seconds, poof, all the boys vanish. Surprise! It was Sherry who took care of them in a flash. So while nobody's looking, our guy eases back over to Charnad and hits her with a bombshell question. He's like, "How did you get that agent hooked up with those demon swords?" She's totally stumped on how he knows. But then our dude drops the big one. He's the Demon King, and the witch is having none of it. She's all, "You can't just fling around that name like it's confetti," and tries to clap back at him. But our boy parries her magic attack like a pro, casually saying it's some ancient magic he literally whipped up thousands of years ago. So then he grabs the witch and is like, "Spill it. Why were you trying to wreck the holy swords?" She says it was all to forge a shiny new demon sword because the goddess was going to gift it to them. Our dude is totally shook because, like, the gods were supposed to have been zapped out of existence a whole 1,000 years ago. But just then, Charat gets run through from the inside by some sword energy and starts showing her true freaky self. This totally wigs our dude out because he recognizes that holy sword. It's the infamous Demon King Slayer, but never did he expect that even that sword would get corrupted by the voids. And let the battle begin. He's got to dodge and weave those attacks while also playing bodyguard for the princess. But he's kinda buzzing when he sees the ship's cannons fire up, blasting away at the voids. Regina even launches some missiles at the main bad guy. Just then, Roselia joins our boy, and he's super pumped to have her back because he needs her to cover him while he powers up. While she's taking out some voids, our dude summons his demon sword with one mega powerful slash. He totally obliterates that void lord. A few hours later, they finally roll back into the city, and the princess is showering them with thanks. She's grateful to all the girls for going full beast mode and saving her life. But she's kinda thrown off that our boy is MIA. The girls tell her he couldn't make it because he was completely wiped out, and you can see the princess is super bummed about it. She's also sad she can't meet the spirit mage who saved the ship, but Regina keeps it on the down low, and Roselia just says the mage wishes the princess all the best. A few hours later, our dude is still awake and aching badly from using the demon sword again. Then Regina pops in with some snacks to thank him for everything he did yesterday. Fast forward a few days, and a squad of agents is totally boxed in by some Imperial guards telling them to give it up. They're about to be tossed into jail for trying to jump the princess, but right then, they hear a voice from nowhere, and a spell zaps the guards into stone. The agents are fully mind-blown. They watch as our boy strolls up wearing a mask and introduces himself as Zorbadis. He's like, "I'm the demon king of this world, and you're gonna serve me." Then with a flick of his magic, he makes them all hit the floor and bow to him. He tells them he's willing to help if they join his crew, saying he can hook them up with a safe place to crash. In the end, the agents go sure thing since they've got no other card to play. Then our dude summons a portal to a whole labyrinth that's completely off the grid from the human world. He tells them they can set up camp there and chill until he gives the next orders. But just then, he gets a call from Roselia and has to bounce because he's got other stuff to handle. A little later, our boy gets back to his room and finally kicks back happy. He managed to gather all the Aina who the prisoners were for their entire demon kingdom. A few minds later, they're meeting up with the other girls to chow down and strategize for the team battle, and our main dude is just hoping he can pull his weight. A couple of hours later, they're already in the match, and our boy, our dude with Roselia, totally snags the first of the 4 flags they need. And from the bleachers, the supervisors are locked in on their moves because they realize Roselia is using Sakuya to distract everyone, while Regina and Elfin are on point guarding the main flag. But Roselia is totally shook when she sees Ferris, the rival team's captain, there with one of her crew, and she wasn't ready for a showdown like this. But Henry tells her he already knows their whole play. Now, he just needs to take out his 2 opponents to win this thing easy, which is something Roselia is super not going to let happen. Even though her legs are aching, she starts duking it out with Ferris, because our main dude has his own fight to deal with. A few seconds later, Roselia gets slammed against a tree, and Ferris starts dominating her with her ice power, which our dude sees after he takes out his rival. But he refrains from jumping in because Roselia is fired up and has no plans to throw in the towel. She's been wanting to prove herself for ages, and she is not about to give in. So she totally shatters the ice cage Ferris trapped her in and knocks Ferris out cold. A few minutes later, they seize the victory, and the commanders are seriously impressed. But they know those kids are still way too green for a real battle because they're totally missing a heap of experience. Meanwhile, over in some deserted city, Nephikus offers up a bunch of holy swords from some users they managed to snag as a sacrifice, hoping the goddess of prophecies will wake soon, just as a floating city appears in the middle of the ocean. They're hoping to make a bunch of holy swords from some users they managed to grab, and he's crossing his fingers that the goddess of prophecies will wake up soon, just as a floating city pops up in the middle of the ocean. A couple of hours later, Raylia's crew gets the call, because they've got a mission, folks. They picked up on some suspicious shenanigans happening thousands of miles away, so they sent out a drone to snap a pic, and the girls are totally shook, because it's Assault Garden number 3. And the commander confirms it, saying it's the exact one that went ghost, but it's back and heading straight for them without a clue as to why it decided to party or why it's coming their way. They're betting something big is brewing. On top of that, they've spotted some active flags in the survivor zone. Now, while it's long odds to hope for survivors, they still want them to check it out, even though it could get them into trouble, and they need to be ready for anything. But Elfin pipes up with why they're getting sent, thinking it's because Roselia is the Duke's daughter who once ruled that place. The commander can't really argue, but she explains it's orders from higher-ups, and she's just crossing her fingers they can rein in Garden Number 3 before 72 hours tick down. Otherwise, they're toast. Meanwhile, our dude thinks this place is calling for heroes, and he's ready to roll with them. Even though they view him as just some kid, our boy gets everything lined up and chats with his family. He mentions he spotted the flag of some holy cult in that spirit town, so they gotta check it out. Right then, our dude asks Blackus to chill at their new base while Sherry joins him. A little later, our MC is cruising with his girls on a ship, and Regina straight up makes him lie down because he needs to catch some Z's on the journey. But this just kicks off a major flashback for our guy. Flashback to when he was chatting with the goddess Roselia, who said she'd been around for ages. And even though she wasn't thrilled about it, she was planning to bail at some point. This absolutely freaked our dude out. But Roselia assured him it was all part of the plan and that she'd come back like 1,000 years from now. So she asked if he'd hunt her down. Our boy promised he'd search high and low and never quit until she was back by his side. Then Roselia requested just one little favor. If she gets reborn, he's got to take her out before she accidentally hurts the people she loved. A few hours later, our MC and the girls land in that wrecked garden, and Roselia and Regina can't help but feel all the feels being back in a place where their family used to call home. But after getting their game plan set, our dude decides to stick with Roselia while the other girls scout around the food and emergency zones looking for survivors. Meanwhile, our boy taps into Cher in her head, telling her to keep an eye on the girls, since they're now basically part of his kingdom. As he strolls with Roselia, she just pauses for a moment, taking in the whole chaotic view, because she recognizes some of the buildings she used to visit with her dad. But right then, the void meter starts blaring, and they get ambushed by a rain of bullets. Roselia even gets smashed by a freaking pole, and our MC is just shook watching as a gigantic void zooms right over their heads. A few minutes earlier, in the floating city, some girl just shows up in the middle of the street, totally lost. She's got no clue where she is, but looking around, she spots there's not much life around and is kind of blown away by how much the world has transformed in 1,000 years. But hey, if she landed here, it must mean the goddess is about to wind up back, so she's got to take charge. She climbs to the top of a building and sees a chopper rolling in, but then Nefake sneaks up on her, calling her out as Arl the elf hero. She's like, how do you know it was me? But Nefake's just like, I know a lot of things, like your whole mission is to take down the goddess's vessel with the demon sword. Hearing this, Arl assumes he's the goddess's guardian, and Nefake hits back. Even if that were true, you'd be powerless. Just as the girl goes to attack him, he vanishes, leaving only his voice behind, saying his goal is to wipe out all humans, and that includes her too. Right then, a void zooms past way too close for comfort. Back with our boy, he's using his magic to shield Roselia, pulling her underground while throwing up a protective barrier. He even tries some basic spells, but the Dark Angel has this force field that blocks everything. So our boy knows he's got to pull out the big guns. He finally conjures up this gravity sphere and just slams the thing into the pavement right at the void. Plus, the second that beast manages to smash through it, he fires off a freaking fireball and a bolt of lightning, totally taking out the angel. After that's done, our dude heads over to Roselia, who still can't even get up since the cut on her leg is super nasty. But while our boy is trying to figure out their next move, he spots something in the alley and goes on high alert. Roselia is like, hang on. It's not a void, because she recognizes the uniform and is totally floored because it's one of her dad's knights. The guy introduces himself as William, who apparently fought in the battle with Duke Cristal, and he's super relieved if they saw the flare he popped off, because that was his signal to get them to come over, and he's got the whole scoop on everything that went down. This completely blows our guy's mind because it's the first time he's ever seen actual spirits in a world this techie. Meanwhile, William is breaking it down for Roselia, telling her that based on what he's seen, it's looking like a new stampede is going to totally wreck the 7th Garden, because in the heart of the city, some Void Lord has been chugging magic power and is about to wake up. Meaning that thing is definitely going to wipe out the 7th Garden, and they need to put a stop to it, which Roselia is already onto. But on the downside, she's in so much pain she can barely move. So William's like, I'll get you to your mansion, since he's got everything ready to roll. They were totally anticipating her arrival. But our guy wasn't into just one ride, so he conjures up 2 skeleton horses to speed things up. Meanwhile, the other girls are roaming the city trying to locate our guy because they saw the sparks flying from the brawl. Just then they spot this girl and are like, "Whoa!" thinking she's a survivor. But Sakuya puts a hold on her friend, stopping Arl's about to fly attack, which kicks off a whole brawl with this girl. With one slick move, she has Arl totally pinned one step away from getting steamrolled. But Sakuya puts her sword away, because if the girl wasn't already a hot mess, they'd probably be toast. She says she needs to help with that injury. A bit later, Roselia says the pain is starting to ease, and our guy is pumped because it looks like she's on the mend. But Roselia, feeling bold, just goes for it and starts slurping his blood because she's feeling super weak. While that's happening, she gets a call from Elfine, who's totally stoked to hear her voice again, which makes Roselia grin too. She fills her in that they've run into a few hiccups, but they managed to take down that void. So she's got some juicy intel like there might be a void lord chilling in the city's core, and they need to meet up to figure out the game plan. Elfine confirms it and says they need to converge at the city's central park to strategize, and they'll swing by right after patching up an injured survivor. This news completely floors Roselia, but just then the call drops and our guy tells the girl it's time to hand her something super crucial, this dress he crafted especially for the vampire queen. With it, she'll be able to channel her magic energy directly into physical power, so a ton of her skills will receive a major boost, but she should only whip it out during emergencies. Plus, he shows her 3 talismans he wants to hook her up with to keep her safe if things get hairy, because he's not about to let what just happened go down again. Meanwhile, the girls are patching up Arl's wounds, and she's thanking them for their help. An elf is rummaging through his data trying to find the girl's name, but comes up empty since she's from the Third Garden. So he straight up asks her who she is, and Arl tells him she's a Chinese sword designed to take down that goddess. But when she catches the confused looks on the girls' faces, she realizes that nobody remembers the legend. For now, she has to deal with the dude pulling the strings of the Dark Angels. Since she's totally weak and starving, the girls tell her to just relax for a bit while they grab some grub, and they'll help her out because it's their mission to save all the survivors in the city. On a different note, Nifox gets the scoop from one of the angels that none of the other voids made it out in one piece, which totally floors the guy. But he's not buying the story that it was just some swordsmen who did them in. Not that it matters, since the goddess will be back on the scene soon anyway. After a bit, our guy rolls up with Roselia to the Dio mansion, and she's just blown away because memories are crashing over her like a tidal wave. So they stroll through the place, reliving her past life, and our main character does too, remembering his time in the Demon Palace. But then Roselia makes her way to the library, where she starts crying, thinking of her dad and the spirits. She taps into her energy to conjure up an illusion that makes the room look just like the good old days, which totally shocks Roselia when she sees her dad talking to her just like when she was a kid, telling her a tale about the Demon King and the hero who beat him with the power of the gods. Roselia can't help but smile, reminiscing about those good times. But then a voice snaps her back to reality, and when she turns, she sees it's Nifax, but she thinks he's just another survivor. Nifax gets super ticked off, taking it as a major insult to be treated like a mere mortal. So he immediately says he won't let that disrespect slide and hurls a massive fireball at her, which our guy hears and bolts over to her. At that moment, Roselia is out cold, flashing back to when her dad and brothers had to go off to fight. She really didn't want them to leave, and her dad promised her that as soon as she got a sacred sword, they could fight side by side. But for now, she had to hold on to the legend he told her about the Demon King, because he believed that same Demon King would be the one to rescue him from the voids one day. Just then, Roselia wakes up totally shocked because 3 skeletons are staring her down, which also catches Nifax off guard because he didn't think the girl could summon a death servant. But our guy rolls in seconds later and without missing a beat, blasts Nifax with a powerful spell. While he's doing that, he quickly checks on Roselia to make sure she's okay, and the 3 guardians signal that they've got her covered so she wasn't hurt. But Roselia is still clueless about what just went down. Our guy tells her it was those amulets he handed her a bit ago because he was sure she'd need backup. But, right, then they hear this dude fake laughing like there's no tomorrow, totally not expecting a mage to show up, especially one of that level in this world. Our guy recognizes him, but has zero clue what he's doing around here. So when this guy unleashes his fire magic, our protag claps back with some ice magic and just schools him with ease. Then he strolls up to Nefakes and is all like, "Yo, what's your deal being here?" And just like that, the ground begins to tremble like it's auditioning for a disaster movie. But Nefak is standing there, all smug, saying, "Oh, please. St. Terry's fate is sealed. She was just the delivery girl for the goddess who's about to chow down on the entire world." So, out of nowhere, Nefake takes a stroll through a crack in the ground. Our guy tries to put on the brakes, but nope, not happening. He's left scratching his head, wondering what kind of shenanigans Nefake was up to in the first place. Since this dude's one of the Demon King's top goons, he's praying he isn't mentioning the goddess Roselia. But just then, they hear this ear-splitting noise and look over to see some colossal figure poofing right in the middle of the city. Our protagonist locks eyes on St. Terrace, now resurrected as a void. And as if that weren't enough, the emblem of the Sacred Order suddenly lights up the sky. And with that eerie chanting surrounding them, it's pretty clear they've all turned into voids. So they start backpedaling faster than a cartoon character. Meanwhile, the other girls are also witnessing this wild scene unfold, flipping out because they're sending SOS signals to the 7th Garden for an evacuation, like they're not dealing with a Void Lord or anything. While they prep to throw down with the incoming monster horde, our boy is grappling with the other warriors and Roselia knocking out voids and dark angels, but everyone's real skittish because no matter how much they pound on these guys, the voids heal up quicker than a speeding bullet, taking one out of the game. So he shouts that they need to aim for the noggin to stop the healing because Terrace had serious regenerator powers and she probably still has them now that she's a void. Elfin and her crew catch on to the same strategy and start wasting the voids rushing at them. A few moments later, Elfin manages to snag some rides to help them zip around. She tells her pals to cover her while she works her hot wiring magic. Meanwhile, our protagonist's eyeballing Terrace, knowing while everyone else is throwing punches, our dude starts charging up this massive level 10 spell, making a fireball swell up to monstrous proportions before it slams into Toos, lighting her up like it's the 4th of July. But just a short while later, everyone's jaws drop to the floor when they see that Toos healed up faster than you can say abracadabra. But our hero spots some funky runes lighting up in the sky, so he tosses up a shield just in time while everyone else is just gaping at the show. As a rain of fire starts pouring down from the heavens, it even takes out a bunch of the dark angels trying to claw their way back into the scene. The impact is so colossal that folks miles away can get a front row seat to the show. And the girls recognize that kind of power. It's level 11 magic. And she's like, "You got it," along with the rest of the Guardians. So he starts brawling with the Dark Angels trying to swarm him while our boy takes to the skies and preps his demon sword. He knows he's got to finish Toos off, so he whips it out, reciting the magic words to pump it up. But he's totally flipping out when it's echoing from that Void Lord's direction, and he's completely stumped because Roselia is calling him out for trying to take her down with the same sword she gifted him. And our guy, totally fuming, yells back that there's no way she's the real Roselia. So he forces the sword, managing to unleash a magic slash, but Toos just laughs it off and counters with a flurry of light spears fired off like they're in a high-speed chase. And in the chaos, one of those spears manages to skewer Roselia, while our dude gets absolutely ganked by one too, hitting the deck like a sack of potatoes. And everyone's losing their minds, including Roselia. She rushes to his side with the Guardians hoping to shield him from any further harm. But then they see Toos revving up his runes with just one swing of her sword, she sends a colossal wave of destruction crashing into Toos, knocking him flat on the ground, halting the firestorm, and giving them some much-needed breathing room. She glances over at our dude, who's recalling what Roselia urged him long ago to escape and save herself. She throws her arms around him because there's no way she's bailing. She decides to try to staunch the bleeding from his chest. And he remembers how Roselia had once asked him that if she ever became corrupted in the future, he was meant to be the one to take her out with the demon sword, a request he'd stubborn. So our boy finally gets it. She totally foresaw all of this, and that's why she asked him herself, promising that the demon sword she gave him would lead him to his destiny. Just a few moments later, Roselia is absolutely floored when our dude suddenly comes back to life, but he knows that Roselia entrusted his future to him. And he recalls her request to find her true self, which means the demon sword is supposed to guide him to the real Roselia. For now, he's got shouting at him to take a time out, but our guy is well aware that's not on the agenda because he has to take down Terrace. Thanks to Roselia's help, he's already back on his feet, so spears everywhere hitting the deck like they just got smacked with a frying pan, and everyone starts flipping out, even Roselia. She darts to his side with the Guardians to try and keep him safe. But then, they spot Tus revving up his runes for that fiery rain attack. With just one swing of her sword, she sends a colossal wave of destruction crashing into Tus, knocking him flat on his back, saving them from that firestorm and buying them some precious time. She throws a glance at our dude, remembering what Roselia had said to get out and save herself. But at that moment, she wraps her arms around him, because there's absolutely no way she's leaving him behind. She decides to try and patch up the gash on our dude's chest. And he recalls how Roselia asked him that if she ever turned to the dark side, he had to be the one to take her out with the demon sword, something he would never dream of doing because he could. So our boy gets it now. She totally could see this coming, which is why she made him promise that the demon sword she gave him would help him fulfill his destiny. A few seconds later, Roselia's gobsmacked when our dude suddenly wakes back up. But he knows that Roselia trusted him with the future, which means that demon sword is supposed to help him find the real Roselia. And for now, he's got to deal with this phony version of his goddess to clear Roselia's name. The warriors are telling him to chill for a sec, but our dude knows that's off the table because he needs to take down Terrace, and with Roselia's backup, he was supposed to be the one to finish her off with the demon sword, something he absolutely refused to do because he couldn't bring himself to take down his own goddess. But Roselia told him it was her wish, just in case things got out of hand. So now our dude's got the picture. She totally saw this coming, which is why she asked him personally, promising that the demon sword she handed over would guide him to his destiny. Just a few seconds later, Roselia is taken aback when our guy suddenly revives. He knows Roselia entrusted the future to him. And he recalls she also told him to find her true self, which means the demon sword is meant to point him to the real Roselia. For now, though, he's got to deal with this fake version of his goddess to clear her name. And the warriors are telling him to chill for a sec. But our dude's like, no way, I have to take down Terrace. And thanks to Roselia's support, he's already back on his game. So he snatches up his trusty sword, fully aware that he's got to tap into that power again, even though his mana is lower than a flat tire. Suddenly, a bunch of ghosts waltz in, telling him he can snag some energy from them if he's running low. They claim they've been keeping an eye on him and know he's more than just your average Joe sorcerer. He can actually siphon souls of the dearly departed for magical juice. So, if it comes down to it, he can snag energy from everyone who kicked the bucket in the city. Upon hearing this, our hero starts connecting the dots with Tyrus's resurrection and the wild energy he's radiating. It's like the souls of the deceased decided to take on a ghostly form again, so without missing a beat, he opts to take them up on their generosity and begins sucking in all the souls swirling around him. He lets the knights know, which is like a major upgrade for them, and he conjures up an entire squad of skeletons. All the knights' souls meld into the skeletons, transforming them into epic warriors ready to kick some butt again. Our main guy then gives Roselia a nod and says, "You got this." He needs her to rally the troops, because it's going to take a hot minute to soak up the magical energy he needs. He's just crossing his fingers. They can hold the line, and Roselia is all in using her own blood. She bonds every warrior and yells the order to go full throttle on Tis, who just pops back up minutes later. They're already in a wild warriors while our guy keeps piling on that soul energy. But wait, Relia's knights need to watch her back because she's zoned out for a hot second, then remembered she's supposed to keep our guy safe. So she snaps back to reality, not far off the other girl's role in getting into the action against some voids. But Regina and Sakura's weapons just wipe those guys off the map. They're praying they aren't too late to catch up to that Lord Void. Meanwhile, our hero is intently watching his crew fight, knowing he still needs a bit more magic juice. But then he freaks out when he sees Tira gearing up her level 11 magic again. He shouts for everyone to huddle up because a massive attack is looming, and in an instant, a torrential downpour of fire decimates the area, but our boy pops out moments later, completely unscathed thanks to a shield he managed to conjure up. Meanwhile, the girls inch closer, but then they catch sight of a dark angel sneaking up behind them. Arl completely loses it because it's the same one that messed her up previously. But then the angel gets snagged by Sherry's whip, who takes it down in mere seconds. Back to our main dude. He beams, finally having gathered enough magic energy, and starts channeling it into his sword. But Tus isn't going to let him take a victory that easily. She amps up her magic again. Our guy is like totally stunned, but he doubts she can keep tossing fire rains at him. And Tus realizes she can't, so she rips a whole building from the ground and hurls it at him. But Roselia's got it under control. She uses her vamp powers to smash the building to pieces before it can even get close to our guy. He begins chanting the spell Roselia taught him for his demon sword, and even though Terrace tries to throw shade to break his concentration, our dude doesn't even flinch. So in the final showdown, Tus throws up an ultra-high holy shield for protection. Our hero starts to sweat a little because his attack can't be stopped now. Just then, as the girls pull up, they finally spot the Lord Void. Arl urges them to get a little closer. Finn warns them they're about to make a huge leap. When they do, Regina and Sakuya start slicing through with their swords, managing to chip away at the shield a bit, but Arl then unleashes all her magic power into an attack because they have to take down this goddess. She completely shatters the shield, even injuring Tus in the process, which leaves our hero stunned because he didn't see that attack coming. But boy, was it spectacular. He's ready to capitalize on the fact she's hurt to pull out his sword, letting her know that his sword has figured out that Tus is just a wannabe goddess riding on Roselia's coattails. So he unleashes a magic beam that starts erasing Tus from existence, giving her zero chance to recover. He wraps up the battle in mere seconds, taking out all the voids that were swarming the city at the same time. A few minutes later, our boy surveys the aftermath of the skirmish while the ghosts bid farewell to Roselia, telling her it was a total privilege to serve her family even after they kicked the bucket. She asks them to tell her parents all about her, and the knights promise they'll be super proud of the warrior she's become. Right at that moment, the other girls roll in, and Roselia joins our guy as they meet up with them, culminating in a big happy hug, totally relieved to see they're still breathing. Our dude is left in shock when he recognizes Arl. But just seconds later, some ships appear bringing help for the wounded, and our boy realizes they've managed to keep his kingdom safe yet again. A few minutes later, they're already on the ship, and our main character stops his gawking at Arl because he can't quite figure out what she's doing in this era, like, being the elf heroine. But then Roselia starts chatting about a book she stumbled upon in her dad's library. Hearing this, our dude pieces it together, the whole saga of the Demon King and the heroes turned into bedtime stories for kiddos. A few hours later, our boy is in his room talking to his crew, explaining how Nefar popped up. They need to track him down to clarify his actions, but in the meantime, Sherry is super skeptical about Arl. Our dude asks her to keep a watchful eye on Arl, but then Roselia suddenly pops in out of nowhere, saying she needs some of his blood to recover from the fray. This totally catches our guy off guard. Our dude asks her to keep an eye on Arl, but out of nowhere, Roselia pops in saying she needs some of his blood to, recover from the fight. This completely blindsides our boy. Meanwhile, the other girls are off doing their own thing. But Elephant has a hunch that there's a little string tying all these attacks together, and she's determined to unravel the mystery behind it all. At the same time, Arl comes to in the hospital and figures if she hasn't poofed out of existence yet, then her mission's still on. So she snatches up her sword and just bulldozes through one of the walls to make her grand escape. Our guy hears the commotion from a distance, but figures it's not worth his time just yet. After all, it's not a big deal until he's got enough power to roll into town and introduce himself as the new head honcho, the Demon King. And that's a wrap on this recap. If you want to catch another mind-blowing recap, the new head honcho, the Demon King. And that's a wrap on this recap. If you want to catch another mind-blowing recap, 2 more videos should pop up on your screen like magic.